Okay, training video about the International Criminal Court in The Hague. Now, that was set up by Tony Blair, and it was my idea to invade Kosovo, and there was no UN mandate. And people who say there was are talking about how the UN sort of went back and looked at it and said, oh, that was good, and sort of made their own months later on, okay? But when the action took place, there was a dynamic happening, Serbia invading. And I said, Winston Churchill said that, we've got to keep an eye on the Balkans because it has the capacity to set the whole of Europe to the flame of war. And so everyone said, oh, how persuasive, Mr. Jones. Let's invade bomb Kosovo. And then Bill Clinton got carried away and bombed Serbia as well. And that wasn't my idea. I just said bomb Kosovo because, they come in and then, I said, well, once you drop those bombs, you can't actually leave it now. It's more dangerous to leave it alone than it is to put boots on the ground. And Douglas Hurd, the former Foreign Secretary in the House of Lords, would say, take 4 years, and everyone said, it'll take 4 or 5 years now to invade Kosovo. And I said, no, come on, let's have some blitzkrieg. And they got it done. And we didn't even get any casualties other than a broken leg. No fatalities. One broken leg by someone in the SAS on the way to the airport in Pristina when the Russians were ordered onto the, because they actually came along, you see, that was another thing. I said invite the Russians. So they actually invited the Russians for diplomatic reasons, that NATO wasn't throwing its weight around in the Balkans without the Russians coming along to have a go as well. But they occupied the airport. But before it happened, the intelligence was that the Russians were on their way, so they sent the SAS in a mad dash to get there first. But they didn't make it in time, and someone broke their leg trying to get on the plane in a hurry or something. But then General Wesley Clark of NATO Command ordered Lieutenant General Michael Jackson of the British Army to go and take the airport back off the Russians, and he disobeyed an order. You see, he disobeyed a NATO order, and he could have been court-martialed for it. But he said he was not going to start World War III, and I agreed with him. And I said, well, of course, this silly American general doesn't know the difference between the Serbians and the Russians, and he thinks they're all the same. They're all gooks or kooks or whatever they call them, to his mind. So, so I got him let off with it, okay, because I'm the king. See, so you can't court-martial a British general if the king says, oh, well, he did it right. He's right, thin end of the wedge. So later on, then, when the KLA started invading Macedonia, I rang Ian Duncan Smith's office and said we should have a 30-day Macedonian peace plan to intervene to help the Macedonian police resist the invasion. And Jeff Hoon announced it on the news in the evening, because it was George Robertson was the Minister of Defence when the Kosovo thing was going on. And so I said to Ian, look, that was my idea. You can corroborate it. Why a 30-day? Why not a 10-day or a 20-day Macedonian peace plan, Why a 30-day? You had the voicemail in the afternoon. It was on the 6 o'clock news being announced by Jeff Hoon. Why can't you corroborate that is my idea? Because I'm being falsely accused by malicious lies of mental illness, and you're in a position to tell me the truth. And he denied me the truth, you see. And that is why later on I got in touch with Barbara Emile, Conrad Black's wife, and stirred up the revolt on his backbench using the telephone and had him sacked as Tory party leader for being in a position to back me up with the truth and denying me the truth. Okay, so that's the history of it. Then Tony Blair had set up this war crimes tribunal in The Hague, and it was only for Serbians. It was only for Slobodan Milosevic and Ratko Mladic is on trial today. This isn't happening now. I mean, we're talking about events going on, back in the other millennium. This is 20th century events going on here. I was only 25 years old when this was going on, but so he was caught to in Reiki. But I happen to know that Slobodan Milosevic really was murdered. They're saying it's a conspiracy theory, but it's not. And my old man is also involved with the MI6 people. His wife is having an affair with the man who murdered Lady Diana. I think he is too, that he's having it you know, with Julian Bennett, and he made a comment. I said, you know, this Milosevic has died of a heart attack. Already, I'm well aware of the pattern of the serial killer Cherie Blair and the heart attacks. You know, why we ever had a new Labour? How John Smith just died of a heart attack, and next thing you know, hey, my name's Tony. You know, where did this guy come from? You know, Tony Blair, and the convenience of heart attacks to all his political enemies. You know, Scotland's going independent, and Donald Dewars died of a heart attack. Robin Cook decides that he was Foreign Secretary at the time of Dodgy Dossier 2 on the 9th of September 2002. He didn't know anything about a 45-minute claim, and anyway, by the Attorney General's advice, that 45 minutes had to be an over-range Alsamut 2 missile landing on Cyprus carrying a warhead at WMD for them to get a legal mandate under Resolution 1441. They didn't have anything like it, but they'd stretched it. And anyway, by the eve of war debate, we'd already had the weapons inspectors, and Dr. Kelly and Hans Blix had taken out all the over-range Alsamut 2 missiles. They were only 15k over range. They couldn't have got anywhere near Cyprus anyway. So Tony knew well he was embarking on an illegal war. But of course, Robin Cook, being a sly hand-wringer, didn't say anything when he had Dr. Kelly murdered for telling the truth about Dodgy Dossier 2 being sexed up in Downing Street, and of course the Walter Mitty fantasist in MI6, the double-sourced story. Okay? So then Robin Cook decided that he'd get together with Gordon Brown, and he'd say, oh yeah, well, actually I'm the Foreign Secretary, you can't call me, or he was the Foreign Secretary, you can't call me a Walter Mitty fantasist. You know, this dossier about WMD was dodgy after all, and Tony's going to have to resign for Gordon Brown to have it, you see. So so Robin Cook had to die suddenly of a heart attack. You see, or fell off a cliff or whatever, you know. So when Slobodan Milosevic was murdered with a poison and heart attack, my old man made this comment: it was going on too long. So this is the War Crimes Tribunal in The Hague. Now Tudjman didn't have to go, no Croatian has to go. It's totally, you know, we pick and choose our enemies, we vilify them with our media, we put them on for a show, and it's not a justice system, is it? Because when it starts going on too long and Tony's not getting his flattering newspaper headlines, so Tony is himself a war criminal, okay? But Tony wasn't getting his flattering newspaper headlines from this trial of Milosevic, and he was getting all very tortuous, and it was going on too long, so they murdered the defendant, you see? So what respect can we give to this process in The Hague? And what I'm saying now, okay, they've got the right key man, that's Ratko Mladic, but the other one's still out there, isn't he? You know, was it Slobodan Milosevic, Ratko Mladic, the other one? Anyway, what I'm saying is, it was my idea to invade Kosovo. There wouldn't have been any action had they not instigated any. And these days, I am not amused with the criminal behaviour of the UK regime, and I'm intent on regime change or destruction in order to protect myself from their criminal activities. Okay, and the enforcement of my human rights and the subjecting of the criminal Harry Rolfe, Buckingham Palace paedophile, to law, okay? And that's what I'm intent on now. And I'm far too busy to get involved in anything at all should Serbia decide to stick two fingers up at the European Union, who are just, well, I mean, they say we human rights, but the people in the European Court are and taking bribes for their Swiss bank accounts from the Queen and the people who murdered Lady Diana, so you don't actually have any of these human rights. Should anyone wish to abuse your human rights, they're on paper, but you can't actually access them. You know, you'll just have to put up with constant germ warfare, assaults, liars, denying it, accusing you, you know, and attempts to have you stabbed and shot, and sabotage your bicycle so you crash on that, or drop pipes on your head, and so on and so forth, you know, rat poison in your food, and uranium pizzas and rice in the bloody kebab shop, and so on and so forth, you see. So, what I'm saying, I mean, that is mortal danger, so I have no fear of mortally endangering any other bugger, you know what I'm saying? Right. So, yeah, if Serbia want to stick two fingers up at the EU and grab the Krajina, and at least take the northern 20% of Kosovo back, which is kind of ethnically theirs anyway, then fine, go ahead, do it, no problem. NATO probably won't lift a finger. If they do, they won't do it with my sanction, and nah, they won't. You see, they'll run around yapping, and